if I could remind everyone, to put your phones on mute or your screens on mute, your audio on mute. That way we can ensure we have a great evening uninterrupted. And if you have not used the chat features before or the reaction features, you can raise your hand. You can put chat messages in the chat site, and then we can have a great discussion this evening. I'm going to get started in just a second. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 1800 by my clock. I hope everyone else is tracking the same time. Good evening and welcome again to this month's session of the Female Mentor Morale Program. As you all know, this is a monthly session we hold for all of our population, male, female, civilian, military, cadets, NCOs, officers, non-commissioned officers, junior enlisted soldiers. We welcome as many people as we can to this forum because we have awesome panel members that bring a great message to us, and then we have a great dialogue afterwards. So this evening, our topic is are having the opportunity to have our values. So we're looking at our professional values as well as our topic being career and personal values. So we have the honor of having two great speakers this evening. Brigadier General Beeler, she is a phenomenal officer, phenomenal leader. If you all haven't already read her bio, General Beeler is the commanding general of the Army Contracting Command. So for everyone that knows how important contracting is to the Army, she is the one leading the charge out there. And so she has the ability to go out and impact everything all of us do on a daily basis. So Brigadier General Christine Beeler is going to bring a message to us this evening. We also have, I could ask everyone to put their phones on mute or their microphones on mute so we can hear the evening. All right, thank you. And also this evening, we have Sergeant Major Lisa Clark, who's our USAREC, the Sergeant Major of the This Is My Squad, TIMS program. Wonderful, phenomenal speaker. We had her with our brigade. I'm the brigade commander of the 59th Ordnance Brigade, and we asked her to come out and speak to our team, gave an awesome message to the population. We had the female population, as well as we have as many people there to listen to everything that she had. And so I'm just so honored to have everyone here this evening to hear their message. But before we get started with any session at night, we always open up with a prayer. So please join us in your faith, and we're going to have Major Mari Lee lead us in prayer. Major Lee.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please pray to the God of your understanding. Dear God, we come to you so thankful, so humbly thankful, God, because as imperfect as we are, you have sought in your mercy and grace to give us all you have given us, God. God, continue to guide us, God, and guide us in the right direction to get change in the right way, God. God, give us wisdom in abundance so we may understand each other and see each other and find that meeting point, God. Give us the way, give us the means, give us the ends, God. Only you can do that. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Major Lee. Before we get started, I just wanted to recognize a few people. I know we're going to have more people dialing in this evening, but I'd like to recognize a few people we have on the line. We have Brigadier General Michael Layler, who is the Chief of Ordnance, who is leading the charge out here for the Ordnance Corps, as well as my leader that helps guide me and mentor me on a daily basis. We have Sergeant Major Clark, who is our Army G1 Sergeant Major. Hey, Sergeant Major Clark. Who is a phenomenal leader up there at the Pentagon, helping lead the charge on making sure our talent is maintained in the Army. We have Sergeant Major Raimundo, who is one of our biggest supporters, who's been here from day one since we've gotten started. And I will tell you, not only is he a supporter, but he is one of the people that actually broadcasts out to a larger audience. So this evening and every evening that he joins us, he broadcasts to 8 Facebook Live pages. So not only will you see the people here on the screen, but just know that we have people that are out in Facebook land who are able to provide comments, feedback, and we try to answer as many questions for them at a later date if we can't get them this evening. So if I've missed anyone, I'll get the other VIPs later on this evening. But so the reason we're here is to hear some phenomenal speakers bring a great message to us. So with that, I'm going to open it with General Beeler. Ma'am, please take the floor and just impart some great knowledge on us, please.
Hey, well, first of all, Colonel Pritchard Brown, thank you so very much. You and your sister, Lieutenant Colonel Pritchard Allen, you know, having started this program, really great opportunity to share motivational, inspirational, and expirational messages so we can all kind of learn from each other without hopefully having to learn the hard way. And so, again, great opportunity. And your boss, so Major General Mark Simmerly, I really appreciate his leaning in and continuing to push for this forum to give it the platform that it has. So, again, great opportunity for me. And a shout out to General Ayler, battle buddy from AMC before, good ordnance officer who makes me happy to see you. In fact, let me take my badges off. So I appreciate that, and happy holidays to you all, right? So today's discussion is supposed to be on values, career and personal values, how they come together, how they may cause some, cognitive dissonance perhaps as we go through our careers and we grow from lieutenant to general officer or everything in between, from private to command sergeant major, and even our great Army civilians, and as they go from starting out as an intern and fellow and eventually become great senior leaders in their own right. I think that the Army does a great job of helping through whatever accession program you have, whether I'm an ROTC graduate, whether it's the academy, whether it's basic training, all of those forms, right, of helping to try and take a very diverse group of people with a myriad of experiences, level set some bubbles on the values, right? So Army values are a fundamental element of how we as an organization can move forward. And really how I have taken my own personal values and my interest in helping people and getting teams to achieve things together, being able to solve problems, right? So we've done, over the course of 30 years, I've done so many Myers-Briggs and so many personality assessments that the first thing I would say is you got to start off with knowing yourself, right? So where are you from? What is important to you? And how does that help you take care of your part of the Army? So I grew up in residential Connecticut. I had absolutely no interest in joining the Army, to be, frank and upfront. I had a friend, my best friend, her father retired. She moved to the area. I loved the interaction of that family, but I was like, who drives 30 miles to go to the commissary to go shopping? Like, why would anybody do that? I'm now in that group. But, so from that dialogue, I saw things that were very, camaraderie and taking care of each other, and how they had friends all over the world that they could rely on and who could rely on them for, stopping over on travel if you're stuck, in a particular city on a plane ride. So all of that made me feel very interested in that part of it, but I had no interest in the Army. But I go off to college, a really, really big school, and you find that you can get easily lost. And so I think that's part of also what the Army brings, right, is that Army family, that concept of, we might not always agree like brothers and sisters, but we're gonna take care of each other. We're gonna help coach and mentor and bring the team together. And I think I found that in the ROTC family. And so, you know, again, I was invited to go rappelling, and I thought, I'll go rappelling. I mean, you know, first question you ask as a college student is, what time do I have to get up to go do this rappelling thing? So it was a reasonable hour, 9 o'clock. So I went down, started rappelling, and you could just see the way the organization worked, the way the cadets were taking care of each other, the way the cadre was allowing them to lead and do, but you know, kind of on the safety side, just checking, making sure things were going well. And I really found that was appealing to me. And so when I joined the ROTC program in my second semester of my freshman year, my best friend, the one I told you before, she fell off the bed when I told her, hey, you're never going to guess what I did. I joined ROTC. But I absolutely discovered how much I enjoyed helping others as a collective team succeed. And so I think that's, you know, whether that's a value or just something that I find extremely rewarding, that's what I have built my personal and professional career on, is how can I, as an individual, we as a team, and us as an organization, solve the problems that are presented to us in whether it's community, whether it's a crisis like the Hawaii, you know, water treatment problem that's going on right now. How do we come together and help solve that problem, take care of Army families? Whether it's an individual soldier or civilians' personal development needs, all of those things are really important from my personal perspective. I have a long lineage of military service in my family, so it wasn't that I was antithesis of military service. It just wasn't something I had personally considered. I am the only Army person in my family from a family of airmen. I appreciate the Air Force in many, many respects. But I decided to go off to do the Army thing. And then, you know, those other things that take, you know, into account good family. My husband, you know, he's retired military. So all of that is part of what makes me part of an Army family, in the Army, and really that whole teaming thing. I think the other thing you need to know is about yourself, right? How is it you engage? What delivers you energy? And then how do you take that energy to drive your organization forward? So for me, my command philosophy has always been pretty simple, and that's kind of how I encapsulate, you know, what I expect of me and what I expect of my teammates as we go forward. And the first thing is always about the people, right? Always in my organization in contracting, we have weapons, we have small arms, we have computers. And therein lies so if that's it, right? The power of Army contracting comes from the brain housing group, the collective understanding, and the training of my civilian and military workforce. So they are my weapon platform. They are the people that deliver the power of Army contracting. So we got to make sure that we take care of them too. We got to make sure that we're providing all of the resources to be successful. Well, that means I got to make sure all of their supervisors have all the to be successful. I think we have,
can we have someone go on mute? Ms. Tanisha Jones, I need you to go on mute.
Oh. Oh.
There you go.
All right. So again, those things are really important. Kind of like this, right? Being flexible. We went into the COVID environment. My 6,000 soldiers and employees, man, we transitioned really quickly because we have great trust in our organization and in our organization's ability to rely on each other and each person's technical competence. We're also very transparent, right? My goal is to make sure that people understand why we have processes in place, what those processes are, so that they understand whether it's hiring, whether it's reward, whether it's, you know, in some cases, having to work through the, I don't want to say the unreward side of the house, the corrective, necessities that sometimes come with employment. But all of those things, right, are really important that people understand what you expect and what you will inspect so that they understand what standards are going to be held to. And so I think that that's really important, to be transparent. And when there is confusion, then you have to over communicate. So that would be the other part of this whole piece, is it really requires leaders to over communicate, which is easy for me because I happen to be an extrovert. So I enjoy engaging. I enjoy opportunities like this to talk to folks, to find out what motivates them, what engages them. How can I, as an organizational leader, enable the organization to provide them with the resources to help develop them both personally and professionally. I also happen to be a big optimist, right? So in my mind, there is no problem that is unsolvable, right? There are no intractable problems. There are things that, might be less good. But I think overall, we as an organization have the capacity and the capability to really solve those hard Army problems, and take care of our piece at Echelon, right? So that's the other thing, right? So Sergeant Major Clark, this is my squad, right? So we in AMC, we're going to roll out, this is my organization, because unfortunately, I don't have anybody below the grade of like staff sergeant, which is kind of a good thing because I get less challenges. But really, right? So that's how do we roll those things out? How do we take care of our team and our squad and work with those other people and move those other people forward in a very positive light? And so, that's how, we approach, that's how I've always approached it. In fact, I know it's not regulation, but I have this little bracelet where I hammer in every year words to live. So right now my words are peace and wonder. And I've been approaching life in the COVID environment, trying to bring in a little peace and wonder in what's going on, right? Wonder in that there's an infinite number of wonderful things in the world. And while we could get bogged down on the challenges we're facing, and there are some hard problems out there globally, there are lots of things that should buoy us up as we're facing those hard problems. And then, how do I and be positive, be available, and be supportive to my organization? I am only as successful as my team, as my senior contracting officials, as the attorneys, as all the supporting.
They're trying to figure out what time to get.
My organization.
Yeah, all the.
Hey, Aaron, you got a hot mic, Aaron Workman. Still not muted, Aaron. I don't know if we can, yeah. So I'm just going to keep driving, right? So at the end of the day, my job is to help folks progress, find balance, and enjoy life. And it really wasn't until I went to the pre-command course up at Leavenworth where you get like 3 whole days to kind of go through all of these bits and pieces and figure out what is your personal purpose. And that's what came out. And it was like an aha moment. It fits perfectly with what I do as an organizational leader, as an individual leader, and really what motivates me and I find rewarding. And that's why I love what I do. And I've continued to do it for 30 years. And I just feel blessed that the Army has said, hey, we're going to keep you around a little longer. We're going to let you keep doing what you're doing. Because, it's we need folks that can help drive organizations forward, that can lead in a positive manner, and that hold people accountable, but aren't jerks about it, right? So, I mean, that's the whole thing, right? Is we have to hold standards, keep people accountable for what they're supposed to do, make sure we're training them so that they can do the things we're asking them to do. And then, it's really important, I think, to be pleasant about getting it done. Otherwise, when crisis comes and you're very focused and you need to move fast, you're not going to have developed that trust. You're not going to have developed that relationship with your people that they will say, okay, we know she doesn't have time to be as transparent as she would like to be, but she will get back to us when the time permits in this crisis. It's what I think has made me successful. And I see that, as I talk to other people again, that is what I think is making other people successful. So with that, I'll flip it back to you, Colonel Pritchard Brown, and let's hear from Sergeant Major.
Yes. Well, ma'am, before we get to Sergeant Major, I'm so glad you said the things that you said, and I want to make sure everyone understands, and I put it in the chat room. If you have any questions as they're speaking, please feel free to put it in the chat room. We're going to ask them when we get done with the messaging part. We're going to have an opportunity to dialogue and ask those questions. We'll bring you up and have everyone ask the questions in the order that you come in. But ma'am, I wanted to highlight just some things that you brought up. The fact that you said there is no problem that is unsolvable. So many people get nervous thinking that there's a problem and they won't figure it out. And what we do here in these sessions, and what we try to encourage people to do with mentors, is ask someone what their thoughts are. And you made the comment right before that about over communicating. As we all know, the old adage is, bad news doesn't get better with time. And so a problem we can't solve is probably something someone else has solved before. So why not ask? And it doesn't hurt to ask, because when we think we're in the world of ourselves and alone, somebody else has probably already been through it, which is why mentorship is such a good thing, because the life you've led, it's funny how you talk about how you came in the military. Probably a lot of people sitting here listening were thinking back to why they came in and thought about the exact same thing. I'm not going in the Army. And yet we're here, and I'm sitting here with you at 30 years also, ma'am, from enlisted to officer. So thank you so much for that. And I can't wait for the question and answer period, because I know you've got a lot of great insight to go. All right, ma'am. All right, Sergeant Major Clark, it is your time. You are up on the net. We'd love to hear from you. And Aaron Workman, you are now unmuted again. So we're going to need to mute you again. Sergeant Major.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Ma'am, Colonel Pritchard Brown, thank you so much for having me on this platform. Brigadier General Beeler, thank you for being the leader that you are, driving our force and contracting, and I've heard nothing but great things about you. So for one, I am passionate about mentorship. Mentorship is something that's near and dear to my heart, because me coming up in the Army, I didn't have a female that looked like me. And I'm gonna say that one more time. I didn't have a female that looked like me. I had all males that try to tell me how to navigate through the Army, which was different. Some of it was helpful, but some of it was like, you don't really quite understand where I'm going and where I'm trying and who I'm trying to be as a female leader. So as we know, the rigorous training that males try to train you up to be and who you are, that really didn't fit me. So what I do now in the Army, I'm gonna explain that job first before I go into a little bit of a history story. I am the TIM Sergeant Major. This is my squad. I work the SMA's initiative for building cohesive, fit, trained teams. So when you spoke about, Pat, what are your personal and professional goals? It's easy for me: integrity and teamwork. And integrity and teamwork goes both ways. So in your personal life, if you're married or have a nice mate or whoever you're with in life, or even friendships, you got to have that teamwork. You got to work as a team to run a household, and you got to have integrity. I mean, you got to be able to tell the hard truth, nothing but the truth, because I always tell people I can't chase a lie. So in my career, I've had the privilege of being a leader and a follower. And I think I'm good at both roles. I would tell you that I do not mind following, because I think you have to follow before you can lead. So I've been a first sergeant, where I say integrity. I need to know the truth about my soldiers. I have been blessed to be an inspector general, where soldiers come complain to me about their leadership. So I always say, I cannot chase a lie. Please tell me the truth first. And I have been a battalion CSM and a brigade command sergeant major. Now, my battalion CSM position, I was the 299th BSB sergeant major out of 2nd Armor Brigade at Fort Riley. I was the only female CSM. So when I came in that position, I was gun-ho, ready to go. But when I tell you that I was good at building the team in my battalion, I had issues building the team amongst the other sergeant majors that were infantry and artillery. So I would go to meetings and I would come home and frustrated. I would go to meetings, I would come back to my office frustrated because I just didn't feel they understood me or they heard me. So I said, let me see how I can build a team with them, because we all needed each other. We deployed together. We went to the field together, gunnery, you name it. I was out there with them. I was the one providing support, all the bullets, the ammo, you name it. That was my position and my job in my battalion. So I started joining in on their conversations. Now, mind you, those conversations were not me. I didn't hunt. I don't fish. I don't do any of that. But I found that joining in and actually trying to understand their world, they accepted me. So when I tell you that sometimes as female leaders, we are the only female at the table, but I would tell you that you still have a voice, but it's the way you use your voice. You don't have to come in there all, hot-headed, all strong and like I can do it all myself. You can almost humble yourself and do it with a little bit of grace. And I tell you that grace goes a long way, because I needed them and they needed me. But once I started including myself in their team, it worked for me. It clicked. One day I walked in, they stopped using the profanity. They stopped saying, shh, here comes the female CSM. They actually said, here comes CSM, here come the BSB Sergeant Major. So I felt that I was welcomed and we worked well for 2 whole years together. So once again, when I say building a team and teamwork is just very near and dear to my heart, is because I had to, I struggled a little bit because once again, if I look left and right, no one looked like me. They didn't understand that I had, I always tell people I have to get up if you get up at 4, I'm getting up at 3, because I needed to be ahead of you to stay in the fight and to be relevant. So I always had my notes prepared. I've always reread the briefs prior to going in there. So when we went around the table, and of course the BSB was the last to brief, I always had something to contribute. And I felt it was value added, but I had to keep doing that for a while to let them know that I deserved the place at the table, because someone higher up selected me to be the battalion CSM. But when I tell you that a lot of females might look around in formations and see that no one looks like them, I would tell you to grab hold of a mentor, reach back, find someone who might have went through that struggle so you don't have to go there alone. And I tell you that it works out, because you can't do it by yourself. Male and females, we have to work together in the Army. I have been serving for 30 years proudly, and I still love what I'm doing. Now, going to the brigade level position, I had to work with a lot of people, a lot of different brigades, and now I have CSMs under me, and of course, all males, only females, but it was a little bit different because I understood. I learned my lessons the hard way in the BSB that taught me how to come in as a brigade CSM and accept them for who they were so they can accept me for who I am today. So when I say integrity, I always tell people, come to me with all the truth, because I'm like Brigadier General Bueller. It's no problem that cannot be fixed in the Army. There is agencies that we have that are underutilized because people just don't know where to go to get those resources. So if you're someone out there struggling, please call me up. I will assist you. And that's how you build that team. It's you can't be an individual in the Army. You will fail. I promise you will fail with that mindset, going into different jobs as if you are the only person there. You have to spread your knowledge across the formations. I had the privilege of being the 23rd Quartermaster Brigade CSM, and that is the AIT for all the Quartermaster MOSs. We are probably one of the CMFs that brings in the most females in the Army. And when I tell you that I had a phenomenal mentorship program, and those females, they love to come talk to me because I was open, I was honest, and I was approachable. And as leaders today, especially as female leaders in the Army, you have to be that way. Because I always tell everybody, in my briefs, don't put a ceiling on your house. You can go through it, you can suppress it, you can go past it. And it's nothing that I probably haven't experienced in the Army. Once again, I came from Chicago. into the Army. So I would tell you, I was rough around the edges. I didn't have a lot of tact at first. I was always in defense mode, but I learned grace along the way. I learned patience. I learned to sometimes, if you got to walk away from a situation, collect your thoughts and come back and approach it with a level head. That is the way you have to lead with these soldiers today, and in anybody in our generation. But I learned it the hard way. So when I say mentorship does such a positive impact, I can remember being an E4 in a warehouse working, and I had one staff sergeant come in and pull me to the side, and that was my mentor, Sergeant Major Lenore, retired Lenore Johnson, and she showed me the way. But had it not been for her, I probably would have had a lot of mistakes along the way, probably more than what I've already disclosed. But I would tell you that it's a learning process. It's a growing process. But females, we're breaking down doors. It's no more I can't. It's no more I don't. It's no more I don't know how to. There are resources. There are female leaders out there willing to mentor you, develop you, and show you the way. Because us three on here, we're going to retire one day. Myself, Brigadier Beeler, Colonel Pritchard Brown, we're going to go out the Army. And then it's the new generation that has to come up. But I would tell you to stay true and firm to your values. Don't let them sway because you might come in contact with a bad leader in your career. Once again, I really believe integrity and teamwork goes a long way. Once again, what I do today is I go out and I brief different organizations on how to build cohesive teams, how to gain that trust of your soldier, how to be a dynamic leader with everything going on in the Army. We are competing with, less resources. We ask more of our soldiers nowadays, more of our leaders, but I would tell you it can be done. But sometimes you have to step back and really get to know the person that's working for you. You should never, when you look at somebody in the morning, you say good morning, you should really look them in the eyes, and you can tell a lot about maybe how their evening went, or maybe if they're having issues. I think we miss signs because we're so caught up into our own world and what we're doing as leaders. But if we just step back and just make a conscious effort to greet everybody with a smile, everybody with grace, because they all deserve it. Our young men and women did not ask to come into the Army and be mistreated. So definitely don't mistreat them on your watch, and show them the right way. Just don't say, oh, that's a bad soldier, or they don't understand. Well, make them understand if they're in your formation. Spread that wealth of knowledge and just enjoy it. And I think Brigadier General Beeler talked about purpose. You have to have a reason why you get up every day and do this job. And it's definitely not for the money. I promise you it's not. You have to feel that you're part of a team. And that is probably why I stayed this long and I'm still in, because I still feel that I'm value added and I'm contributing to something bigger. And I might not always see it every day, but I definitely feel it inside in my heart, and how I lead soldiers and how I try to create teams that's up under me. I have a fantastic team that works with me. I always say no one works for me, they work with me. It's a big difference because we all are after the same goal, and that is getting the Army's message out about this is my squad, building those cohesive, fit, trained, and disciplined teams so we can less likely have sexual assault, sexual harassment, substance abuse in the Army. It's all about building that trust with that squad leader, that first line leader, actually caring and getting to know your individuals. So I would end that on, like I said, my personal and professional goals kind of go hand in hand, because when you have a family, you got to have that teamwork, especially when you have children and you're juggling a job, and integrity. I always tell my kids, tell me the truth up front and I can help you. If you start lying, I'm not going to know what I'm chasing. I don't know how to fix it. And same with your loved ones. Let's sometimes have to have that hard truth, that hard talk, and I think it's okay, because that builds your trust in your foundation, whether it's in your organization or whether it's in your home. But I thank you for my time, ma'am. Happy holidays to everybody. And I'm just very fortunate to be on this platform this evening. Thank you, ma'am.
Well, Sergeant Major, I can't tell you how thankful I am for both of you to be here, but your words resonated with me, and I'm sure with quite a few of them. I'm going to bring up a few things that I know probably hit with everyone on here, but but being the one and only in a room.
Yes.
How do you manage that? And those are the things that we have to figure out and help me mentor those coming behind us every day. I've sat in there as the only female battalion and only minority and female battalion commander in the command of 19. And so I'm walking in a room looking at, and I've said this in past sessions of the best thing about being the only female in the room is that there's no line in the bathroom when you go on break. Because you just get there, everybody else just pass them. You can pass them 10 times and they're still in line. The thing with it though, is it's a lonely feeling as you walk to the bathroom alone. And so I wanted to highlight some of the things that you stated and tied into what General Beeler said, building the team. Well, we have to help others realize that the team looks different than what it used to look like years ago. The team didn't look like any of us, and if I know General Beeler sitting on any session or in any office or any meeting, half of the people looking at her, looking at me, looking at you, didn't consider us part of that team because we weren't groomed the way they were groomed. And so what we have to be careful of is how we choose our next set of leaders. Remember, we're changing a culture. We're not changing just the climate, but we have to change the culture of those that think a team is only supposed to look a certain way. So I appreciate the words that you stated about the understanding that teamwork has to, that family, that we spoke of earlier, General Beeler spoke of and you spoke of, the family that we have to belong to, the ones we're born into, we don't choose, but the ones we are with right now, we luckily get to choose them a little bit. But it's our responsibility to help them understand. And so with that, we're going to go into the question and answer period. And I love to always open up with the first question to both of you and the panel members. As General Beeler stated, and I know as you are, we've been here 30 years, and we have to leave the Army in good hands. How do we do that? Well, just like General Beeler said, and I know you are, and I know I am, and I know my twin sister, Lieutenant Colonel Pritchard Allen are, we're all extroverts. We're all outgoing, assertive, and we can be aggressive when we need to be. But how do we get the population of our junior soldiers, enlisted and officers, lieutenants? I'm focused mainly on females. However, my males too. How do we get them to come out of their comfort zone of being the introvert, or how do we teach them to speak out or speak up for others and for themselves? As we talk about with SHARP, we look for bystander intervention. Well, we see that some of them didn't speak up because they were afraid. So we know it was in us, either whether it was taught to us from our parents, or it's just how we were when we grew up. But how do we teach, coach, and mentor and motivate and encourage those the younger service members who aren't so assertive or able to speak up, or are pretty much afraid to call something out, or call a leader out, or call an issue out? How would you recommend that the leaders sitting on this forum would do that, go about bringing those soldiers into a comfort zone of being able to speak up and become more outside of their comfort zone? Ma'am, I'll let you speak first,
Come over
please.
here on a Thursday. I know that's not your normal day.
Miss Aisha Mason, if we could put you on mute.
We have 27 confirmed guests. They know to bring their
Aisha Mason.
Yes, they have to sell the home. Absolutely. This is the time.
All right, ma'am, if we could get you to go to, okay, there you go. She's on mute. There you go, ma'am.
So I think this is about confidence, right? I think the way we train junior soldiers or junior officers is by building their confidence that they know what right is, what right looks like, and then publicly support them in that activity, right? So where we can highlight how an individual or a leader has assessed the situation and appropriately, come up with a course of action analysis and delivered a good way forward. I think we have to say that in public, right? So we have to praise in public to build confidence in their ability to make the right decisions, to lead, and to get to solutions that are appropriate for the situation. When I taught ROTC, I discovered why all of the ROTC instructors, when I was a cadet going through summer camp, kind of held back and kind of hid behind the trees. One, We didn't want to laugh out loud in front of the cadets because we could see them about to do things that we probably did not but 4 or 5 years beforehand. And we were trying to, okay, well, they got to learn that themselves in that way. But, we also made sure that nothing unsafe occurred. And then we helped on the other end coach them through that. And so publicly praising, coaching them through those things. And you and I think we have to go that one level leader above that lieutenant and that sergeant, so that they're confident in doing the exact same thing, right? So they're confident in praising, they're confident in highlighting other people's capabilities as opposed to pointing out deficiencies. Pointing out deficiencies is important, right? I mean, that's the AAR, 3 ups, 3 downs. It's a great way of making sure we're holistically looking at things. But I think that's got to be the key at the junior leader level is confidence in their ability to execute appropriately. And then tell them it's all right, and show them it's all right to point out where things aren't right. And that you take responsibility as the leader for making it right. Because, they're the sensors on the battlefield. There are things that are not in their, I won't say control, but they don't have the same resources that those next level up. And so that's my responsibility to take that risk off of their shoulders and put it back where it belongs at the next level or even higher up. So that would be my answer.
No, that's a great one, ma'am. Thank you so much. Sergeant Major?
So Brigadier General Beeler spoke about confidence. That's a strong word, because I tell you that everybody doesn't come in with that knowledge of, like, I know what I'm talking about. All my ducks are in order. When I go in here and say what I have to say, I know all this is factual, because as a young soldier, you have to learn that. So if they're in your formation, I would tell you to go around and ask the introvert or the one that's kind of quiet or an extrovert, or, however you want to do it. How do you feel about this? Give me your opinion. Have them start speaking out in smaller formations. And I think that would build their confidence, because once again, sometimes when you throw out an answer to soldiers, it's really not a right or wrong answer. You just want to know how they feel about certain situations. And it might not add up to what you want them to think, but that's still their opinion. There's nothing wrong with it. So when you try to build confidence with younger soldiers, you have to start small. Because if I said, hey, I want you to go in there and approach the battalion commander or the brigade commander, they'd be like, are you crazy? I'm not going in there. No, I can't do that. But I would tell anybody that anyone's approachable in the Army, as long as you do it respectfully and with tact. So it's a lot of stuff you can say that, you're in a mirror saying, I'm going to say this, and it's sometimes you can use different words and still get what you want across, but probably not so rough. Once again, grace goes a long way in the Army, and politeness and actually respect. So I would tell you that building confidence in small teams, because we don't, for me to get out in front of a formation as a first sergeant, heck yes, I was nervous. As a battalion CSM, yes, I was nervous. As a brigade, absolutely, I was nervous. But I gained that along the way, because I would always rehearse and know what I was going to go out there and say. And then eventually it just came secondhand, where it was easy to go out in front of formations. But was my heart racing? Absolutely. Was I scared when I knocked on some doors? I have to go in there and give my opinion? Yes. But I came in there and I knew I had to do it. Sometimes when you're backed in a corner, you have to do it. The words flow easily, and you actually come up with the courage, and you might walk out like, whoo, I did it. Okay, I got it across. Maybe they're going to take my advice, or maybe they're not, but at least I got it off my chest. So I would just say with younger soldiers, starting off with smaller groups to build up their confidence and actually encourage them, like, that was awesome, but you might want to tweak this or tweak that. Just give them positive feedback. No, not so much like you're wrong, do it again. Give them positive encouragement so they can start building that from within.
No, I appreciate that, Sergeant Major and ma'am. That's the advice. As leaders, we have to go out and we have to impress upon our junior leaders and help them understand how to engage with people. And I'll just tell you something I learned along the way from a number of mentors. Trust is not automatic or a right. Most people think you should trust me because I'm the colonel and that's what I say. And no, it's not automatic. the rank, you always hear people say, I respect the rank. Well, I don't want you to respect the rank because the rank didn't give you the order. I gave you the order to do it. And so the one thing we have to remember is that it must be earned and it also must be coveted. I have to want to keep that trust. I want you to trust in me. And so based on basically what both of you stated, it does start with how do we get engaged? And it's the presence and having the continuous engagement. Because I can come up to you one time and I'll tell you, trust me, I've done nothing to earn your trust. But if I continue to come in and then I address your concerns, that one, they're being heard. So they hear someone is listening to them. They've taken action. And then so they're now going to feel like I can come back to that person again and tell them something else is going on. And you're building that trust that they're being heard. And so, ma'am and Sergeant Major, absolutely the words that, the leaders on here, the juniors on here need to hear. And the key is to get it down to our lowest level, our junior soldiers, which is why we open this up to everyone. For the soldiers that we know don't open up and are afraid to whether report an incident, report SHARP, report EO, or just speak out about something that's happening in the formations, when we've done our exit interviews, we find out it's because they didn't know if anyone was going to do anything. They didn't know if anyone cared enough to engage, or they didn't want to be the troublemaker. And then finally, we hear the words, I didn't want to get anybody in trouble. That means they'll sit in silence and suffer just so they don't get somebody else in trouble, although they may be the victim. And so it's like they're cared about their career more than they care about their own well-being. And so that's what we have to get out and help them learn how to be extroverts, or not necessarily extroverts, but learn how to speak out and speak up. So thank you so much for that. I know we've got some questions in the chat, and I'm going to let Major Mari Lee read the first question in there. Major Lee, you want to take the first question that we had someone send out? Well, before she does that, then I will put out that there's a book that was recommended in the chat room, and it was recommended the book Roar. Make sure I have it. It's in the chat room for those of you that don't know. And what I'll say is it's not quite a question. She says, please consider. All right. Please consider reading Roar by Dr. Stacy Sims. And it's in reference to, it says, most relevant to women and leaders of women. This book changed the way I train, and I'm shocked that it took me this long. Hold on a minute. It took me this long to understand my own body and how to train of course this is called, how to train to my strengths. So understanding our strengths and weaknesses. So for those of you, we'll put it out in our emails on the books. We always try to recommend the books that people put out there for us, because we don't know, there's so many books out there that can teach us, about how to lead. There we are. Okay, I thought I lost you. Can everybody see me? Okay, great. All right, Major Lee, do you have the next question ready to go?
Yes, ma'am. And of course, the letters are so small that I have. Okay, so how do you bounce back from a leadership? How do you bounce back from? My apologies, ma'am. My glasses are.
Oh, here it is. I'll read it. How do you bounce back from a leader that wasn't the best one, the best leader? Is that the one you were reading?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So I'll just finish this sentence then for them. And if Danielle wants to jump in here and ask the full question, Danielle, we'd like to ask you to come online and see if you'd like to finish that question. And if there's a little bit more context to that, please feel free to share that with us. Danielle? Danielle Wisdom. Okay.
Yes,
well,
I'm sorry. I don't know if you wanted me to unmute or not. I was in the chat typing. So my question is, so I had a leader that I wanted more feedback from of what I was doing so I could better myself, but I wasn't getting the feedback I felt I needed to better myself. So I felt like I was just like out there dangling, trying to do my best, not knowing it wasn't where the leader wanted me to perform at. So now I'm in a different position and I'm trying to figure out like, okay, so what did I do wrong? What can I do better to make sure now that I'm in a different position, I don't do it in the same manner that makes me feel like I'm failing again?
No, that's a great question. I will start out with Sergeant Major. Sergeant Major?
So we've all had our share of great and not so great leaders. I always say great and not so great. So for me, you know, if you come into a new organization and you have your first sit down with whoever's your raider or leader is, you know, expectations, you know, the first question is, what do you expect out of me? And then vice versa. You know, how can I better serve you as a leader? Now, you're not going to always get a leader that's going to say that, but I would always go in saying, what's your expectations of me? What do you expect me to do? And then I expect this out of you as a leader. I expect you to be present. I expect you to, like, don't wait for my quarterly counseling or, you know, to give me feedback. If I'm not hitting the target, please, you know, come back and let me know. And if they're not the leader that's going to be so engaged in you, then you need to say, can we have a sit down? Can I schedule some time with you where I can just go over my performance? I know it's not time for my counseling, but I just want to make sure I'm on the right path of meeting the goals of the team. So why I would tell you that a lot of leaders would be probably open to that. I know I would appreciate that, because now we're actually signing a contract. You know, this is what I want you to do for me, and this is what I'm going to do for you. It's almost like any, you know, Fortune 500 company. You know, when you get hired on, you know, it's a contract. This is what I want you to do, and this is how I'm going to support you in going forward. Now, I would tell you, don't get so down on yourself and thinking it's you. Sometimes it is the leader. You know, so sometimes, you know, I always tell people, you know, take some good, and you can take some lessons from a not so great leader, because when you come in, and I don't know your rank or what position you're in, but when you become in charge of the formation or whoever you are, your team, you know what right looks like or how it feels in your heart. And you don't want anyone else to feel the way you felt as if you messed up. So going forward is just, you know, making sure you learned that lesson, and that you go into a different approach with your soldiers that you have up under you. But definitely get on their calendar, have some, you know, sit down, just say, hey, am I good? You know, I know you told me this when I came in, but I just want to make sure I'm understanding the organization correctly, and I'm doing everything that is meeting the goal and intent of the commander.
Well, thank you, Sergeant Major. Ma'am?
Yeah, it can be a tough one, right? So, again, not knowing where you are in your organization can be a little bit different in how you would engage. I think Command Sergeant Major Clark is, you know, spot on. Certainly going in and understanding what get the expectations up front. But know that a lot of leaders will counsel not in the quarterly counseling, right? I mean, the quarterly counseling could be somewhat pro forma, meaning it's something, if it's done, it's something that's done just to go over specific things on the paperwork. I think the real counseling gets done in the one-on-one conversations that you have with that leader or that leader's leader, right? So part of the challenge may be in how you assess what your role is, and then ultimately how is it you and your team solve the problems of your supervisor and your supervisor's supervisor. I really think that that's key. So in the greater understanding of not only do the day-to-day, you know, if you're I'm going to pick something, if you're 92 Golf, right? And you're great Army cook, and you're out there doing, you know, you're responsible for one line, but you see things going on that are probably going to be a problem for your supervisor in another line, but your line's squared away. You know, how are you helping your battle on the other line? Or, you know, if you got a new supervisor, how are you helping bring them on to understand, you know, what's going on that line? And then listening, right? How are we solving? So if I'm going to keep with the cook model, right? What are the challenges that the customer base, right? The soldier who's eating in that deep back, what what are they seeing? How are you taking their feedback in, and how are you sharing and shaping that with leadership? Because they're probably talking to you. They're probably not running to the mess sergeant or to the the company commander who owns the DFAC. So how do you help shape that and come up with great solutions on achieving what the soldiers want who eat in the DFAC, and what does the Army want in terms of how do we make DFACs healthy, right? How do we provide people the opportunity to make the right smart choices in their nutrition, as opposed to, hitting the gut truck out in the parking lot, which is once in a while, that's not a bad thing, but as a habit, probably not the best to get you to be fit, right, in the total fitness perspective. So I would say that that's a way to get more feedback by solving other problems. That, don't get me wrong, you got to do your gig too, right? So, I mean, there's, your job is cook or you're running in X, Y, and Z, you got to do that, but understand, how do you fit into the broader picture? How do you establish a relationship that can help solve your boss and your boss's problems, and ultimately take care of whoever your customer base is, if you're in a customer service role. So that would be my answer.
Thank you, ma'am. And I'll just add
Ma'am.
into what both of you stated in reference. Sorry, Major, I'm sorry. Did you? Oh, no, I don't think you said anything. So let me just add in to what both of you stated to address the question that she stated. And so one of the things I always try to do, and I try to let the team know, and I don't want to put it out to everyone here, is we have to understand that every opportunity that a person has with you and is giving you feedback could be very much so counseling. It could be that feedback you need that's not set up in an office call where you're sitting down, where you're across the table from someone and that piece of paper is there. If they're in your room and they're telling you something and they're sharing with you something that needs to be improved, take that as some constructive criticism that you need to inculcate into your daily routine. It may be something that they're sharing with you that didn't come on a counseling form. I know we get caught up in I didn't get my counseling, my quarterly counseling. I'm a firm believer in put it on the calendar and it's going to get done as much as possible if we don't have a grenade that goes onto the calendar. But we have to understand that we're probably getting feedback every day if we understand that that's what it is. We're getting someone that's telling us, hey, this needs to be improved. Well, that person that's hearing that it needs to be improved needs to be taking it as, okay, so that's a tidbit, a nugget I need to take and run with. Say, they just told me I didn't do something right, or I need to improve on something. That's a counseling moment right there. They just counseled you. So every opportunity to get, but we have to also be open and understand that we have to be open to feedback that we're getting when we get that counseling. To understand that if a leader is telling us that something that needs to be improved, or here's some counseling, or here's some mentorship for you, take it for what that is. It's something that's going to help you improve. Like I said, whether it's on the other side of the table with a piece of paper in my hand and showing someone exactly what to do, or it's over the phone talking to my boss or talking to someone, they say, hey, here's a mentorship moment. I talk to my boss, General Layler, and he'll give me, hey, here's some mentorship, some coaching moments for you. That right there is counseling to me. That's an opportunity for me to say, got it. Yes, sir. I totally understand. And I hear what you're saying, because I'm open to the feedback. There are times we have some that don't want to hear that feedback if it doesn't fit right in where they think they are. So I would say go to a mentor and say, hey, this is what I was told. And then you have to tell the mentor the truth so that the mentor can give you some honest feedback. We'll talk about what we are. So appreciate those comments, ladies. And I just wanted to throw that side out there of the understanding that every opportunity to hear something is feedback and is that counseling that's coming. So, all right, we have another question in the chat room, and please, ladies and
Yes,
gentlemen,
ma'am.
feel free to raise your hand. If you have to raise your hand, you can ask your question yourself, or we'll let Major Lee read the next question for us. All right, Major
Ma'am,
Lee.
so we have a question from Kamara Fatu.
Oh, right.
And the question is, how do we change the military culture of our male counterparts, take that role and initiate to build a team? And I'll invite Kamara to explain her questions. Kamara.
Good evening, team. So my question actually came from what Commencement Major Clark was talking about. I've been in the military 13 years, and majority of my duty station has been in the infantry line unit. And I will be one you consider fast track just because I employed what Sam Major was talking about, you know, being that bigger person. Because I stepped in, I'm like, okay, I gotta prove myself, show that I'm like, I got this. But it doesn't work out. So based on how I was raised, I was like, okay, now I gotta employ this. You try to have that common ground and everything, but it gets really exhausting because sometimes I just want you to understand that I got promoted and we're in the same position for a reason. Why do I have to play that role of trying to get to understand you when you could extend the same um, initiative to get to understand me, or just respect that we go through a process, a board process. If I'm here as assigned first class, you assign first class, we both deserve to be here. That's why we're here. But it get really exhausting, and having young soldiers, because based on background, like Sam Major mentioned, coming from Chicago, rough around the edges, I'm African. I was raised where you can't even when you stare at adults, it's disrespect. So it's easy for me to use humility and humble myself, but you have kids now that are coming up, and I want to teach them that humility. But in my mind, I understand that humility should also come from that male counterpart. To understand first, regardless of humility, you could go by doctrine and say, okay, they're here because of this. Let me give them that respect because of that. But often it's not happening. How do we change that culture where instead of just the female feeling like, or being in that role of, let me take a step down to get to know and build this team, how do we get majority of men? Because we do have some male counterparts that do the same, but majority often don't step in that role until you do, and then the teamwork start.
That's a great question. We're going to go on and let General Beeler, would you like to fill that question, ma'am, first?
Wow. So Fatu, I appreciate that question. I guess the challenge really comes, and you're talking peers, really. So it sounds to me this is a peer relationship, and there is nothing harder than leading peers. Nothing harder than leading peers. And that sounds to me like you're doing the right things, right? You're showing respect. In some cases, it sounds like you're not getting equal respect back. And you're in an environment that is based, I think it sounds like, on a lot of vibrato, right? So big personality, and sometimes you gotta have all that also. I think in some cases that's what has worked for me. So while being humble, right, I'm also willing to compete. So in some cases, it's and if you're in a leadership position, even better, because now I got a whole team. So it's like my team is competing against your team on that peer level, right? So it's it's about bragging rights and maneuvering in that space so that you can show that, hey, I'm a great leader, and I'm showing you I'm a great leader because my team is just schwacked your team in whatever activity it was. So let's say it's softball or stick slings or convoy operations. You pick it, right? If your team is doing that, and then you help. That's the next step, right? You show that you've got it. Your team is good at what they do, and oh, by the way, here's how we can help you achieve the same thing. Not in an upfront, overt sort of way, but hey, man, here's what the boss wanted. Here's what we did. Here's you might want to take some of this into consideration for what it's worth and walk away at some point, right? So you know, it's a balance act, right? It's not all one thing. It's not all other. You know, I get the humbleness, but we are in a, you know, a very upfront. You can be gracious and you can still be very all in and like, come on, I'll take it. Let's go. Kind of way. That's probably the best way I would describe it. But I will admit up front, right? So I'm an acquisition officer. My workforce today, if I were to, and my total workforce is 52% female on my civilian side, on the civilian employees. So I have a very balanced organization in that light. So today I don't have those problems. Put myself back in a platoon, in a company, a maintenance company in Korea, you know, I can feel that vibe. And my technique there was a little different than it would be probably today, given the organization I'm in. So I'm going to flip to Sergeant Major. She is probably sounds, I think, more of a relevant experience in this lane. But I hope I was at least a little helpful.
Our Major.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Well, for one, it takes time to change a culture. And as you know, we have females in the infantry, artillery, armor now, and it takes time to adjust to change. And I'm gonna say that first because it's very important that you understand you showing up in an armor world that's predominantly all males, they're not gonna accept you for when you walk in that door. But I didn't tell you it was easy. I told you I had a rough patch those first couple of months, but I had to learn to make sure I kept my passion alive, make sure I kept that my goals in life was to succeed. So by any means necessary, I wasn't gonna let anyone block my blessings that were already laid out for me. So sometimes you gotta walk away from that counterpart, and sometimes you have to be nice, not so much for them, but for your own sanity, for your own peace. Don't let anyone steal your joy. You absolutely have the right to be there. You are absolutely right. Your records got voted the same as them. But long as you know that, you don't have to go around wearing a t-shirt about it, letting everybody know. They know you're in their competition, and they're probably a little afraid, which rightfully so. If you already said you're fast tracking and you're doing the right thing, but don't you lose sight of what you're doing and why you're doing it, because those young soldiers behind you, those female soldiers you're leading, they are watching you, almost like your children. You know, if you got to go off balance or go off cup, you walk away. You have your moment and you come back and put that leadership on, because once again, they're your peers. They're not your soldiers. They're not your raider. So sometimes I would always say, some people, I don't really need their opinion, or I don't really care to know how they feel about me, because they don't impact my day-to-day duties. If you're just a peer competing with me, get on board or don't get on board, either way, I'm not going to lose sight of what I'm doing in life. And when I joined the Army, it was to get away from the streets of Chicago. And then I fell in love with the Army. And then when I started leading soldiers, I knew that was my calling in life, was to lead other soldiers and help this Army grow. And I've sometimes I've got off site and I've came back and I had to go back and reevaluate, like, hey, hurt feelings. My feelings got hurt a little bit sometimes. But I always will go home and reevaluate, maybe how can I do it better? It was more so for me, not so for them. So once again, don't lose sight. I know it's not going to be easy. Trust me, I lived that life. I lived it. And I would tell you that it got easier because I started feeling the joy in it. And I know those female soldiers will always come up to me and ask me questions. And that was satisfying to me, because they wanted to know, hey, man, you're out here doing a great thing. Thank you. And I thank them for even joining those MOSs that are not so nice, I would tell you, are not so receiving of us female leaders. But I would tell you that we're here to stay, and the Army is changed. Whoever has that thought of no females in the Army, no female senior leaders, I don't know what they're looking at or what they're viewing, but we're not going anywhere. If anything, doors are opening more for us nowadays. And it's actually an honor to see that happening on my tenure before I retire, that females are killing it out there. We have female generals, colonels, you name it. There's no jobs that we're not out there. We have female rangers. I mean, let's just think how tough they have it. So sometimes when we want to have our pity party, we got to look at it. Someone out there might have it a little bit worse than what we have it right now. But the fact that we get to serve, that is probably more near and dear to my heart.
Thank you so much, Sergeant Major. And I hope that answered the question for you, Fatu. I will tell you, just like she stated, and just like General Beeler stated, the key is having that confidence. Reach out to someone, and when you're having those hard times, call that person that you know you can lean on and vent, cry, punch a wall, kick a puppy, don't kick a puppy. I have a puppy, don't kick a puppy. But do something to get it off of your chest. And then that person will turn around and reinvigorate you and re-energize you, rejuvenate you, so that the next day you're ready to go in there and kick the door down. I will tell you, my twin sister's on this phone, and she has talked me off the ledge many a time where I'm like, I'm done, I can't take this anymore. But she's like, you can do this. Don't let them steal you, just like Sergeant, don't let them steal your joy. I get so pumped up by the end of the night, I am ready to get in there the next day and be like, now what, you know? So you have to have somebody to keep you energized and motivated, so that that next day when somebody's trying to steal your joy and take away your blessings, you're right there to ready to go for it. And you always know someone's in your corner. So hopefully that's going to help you. Reach out to one of us, if anything. Join us every month. We'll encourage you to get ready to do it again. All right, Major Lee, I know we have some more questions. You want to get the next one?
Yes, ma'am. So we have First Lieutenant Pender, and the question is, ma'am, Sergeant Major, I'm currently mentor for a PFC 68 X-ray who is new to the Army and has a language barrier, which often impacts her confidence, ability to process information, and or feel like she is part of the team. Since she works with my BH team, how can I build her tentering in the mansplaining zone? So how can I build her up without falling into the mansplaining zone?
Ma'am, I'd like to let you answer that question. Every time I hear mansplaining, I just laugh about it because it's such a true thing. But ma'am, I'll let you take that statement first.
Yeah, so, you know, somebody down below said the fact that Lieutenant Pender knows what mansplaining is already clearly ahead of some of his peers, perhaps. You know, so I don't know what a BH team might be, but who on that team, right? Are there other folks on that team that you can kind of work with to help, not necessarily explain what's going on, but find other ways of communicating the challenge? Or another option is, you know, back brief, right? So that's kind of a good way of getting folks to make sure that they understand what you said or what guidance you gave, and then go around, right? So make not just the one individual, but you do the same thing, back brief. Okay, we got a plan. We know what we need to do. And then that can help her build her confidence, because she's going to hear probably peers, right, or other folks on the team back brief what they understood, and that could give her more confidence that she knows what she's in her mind. She got it right without having to necessarily be the first person to say X, Y, and Z, and then get to her, and then boom, and then go forth that way. And that's probably a technique that could work. Again, I'm going to date myself. I have absolutely no idea what a 68 X-ray is. I think it's medical. Is it in the medical career field? All right. So thanks. So yeah, again, I think that's a way of building confidence by getting them to back brief and have more people, go around the room. Sergeant Major?
Yes, I agree, ma'am. Back briefs are awesome. So I would assume that's behavior health team. I'm assuming BH team is behavior health. So that means there's a small team. I would assume it's small, because usually behavior healths are small. Have her teach classes amongst her peers. It doesn't have to be anything like a geometry or nothing. Have her teach a small leadership class, maybe grooming and parents, maybe something dealing with PRT, something that a PFC can like rehearse, and then give a class in front of her peers. And also Toastmasters. Now I know people might not be familiar with Toastmasters, but that is a great, great, great tool that you can use. where you can go in front of people and they give, you know, elevator pitches, and that really helps with building confidence. I know Toastmasters, can you mute your phone, please?
75th Field Artillery Brigade, we need you to mute your phone, your microphone. 75th FA Brigade, there we go, thank you.
Thank you. So Toastmasters is a great thing, but because she is a PFC, I'm assuming she's very young and probably, you know, first time away from home, first time away from her family, that understands her very clearly, where she's coming into a different organization with different types of people from different backgrounds. And actually, I would start off with letting her do small classes. It can be 3 or 4 people, but they can assist her on her confidence and actually on her language barrier without, you know, making her feel as if she doesn't want to speak up. Because sometimes when that can happen, where I don't want to say anything because I might not know the right verbiage, but actually just having that trust that my peers are going to assist me, I would start off small since she is a PFC. Thank you, ma'am.
No, that was great. Both of the great responses for both of you. And I pray that she finds those techniques helpful. I'll tell you, when I was in Japan, talk about language barrier, I will just say, I use my apps and I learn the languages. So, you know, you can do the reverse thing. You pull it out, you practice every night, Rosetta Stone and every other app that is out there that you can practice on. Because we helped our Korean counterparts and our Japanese counterparts by engaging and interacting and learning. And so the dialogue is what helps continue. So practicing, just like you said, giving those classes is very helpful. And I'll even give you one little last TTP that we use whenever, and it's not even about a language thing, it's about catching everything that I'm saying. I let my junior leaders or subordinate leaders pull out their cell phones and I say, turn on audio record, because I'm sending, and you won't write as fast as I'm sending. So feel free to tape me so you can go back and listen to the entire conversation and catch everything you need to. Write your notes from that and you're good. Because we normally don't have a lot of time for people to, most of us didn't take dictation growing up. That's an old school name, so dictation. But you know, little techniques that can help out and help you be successful and that we have offer. All right. Okay, Major Lee, we have the next question. We've got 15 more minutes left in the session, so we're going to probably take about 2 more questions, and then we're going to close out with a few final comments from our panel members, our speakers this evening, and then we'll prepare you for the next session. So Major Lee, the next question. Major Lee, you there?
Ma'am, Sergeant Major pointed out that there is a question on Facebook for the team. Sergeant Major, if you wanted to ask the question, please.
Hi, good evening. The question comes in for both of you. How do you manage personal and professional challenges? That's the question. I think they're referring to sometimes when you see a brigadier general in a command sergeant major, I guess, how do you balance out both professionally and personally life in addition to those challenges? So I guess that's the question. So if you guys can please answer the question. Let me start with you, Samuel Clark.
Okay, so I would tell you, I probably didn't learn balance until late in my career. As a young sergeant first class, first sergeant, I didn't even know what the word meant because I was just trying to get after the mission. But as I started having children, which I have 2, I had to understand that they were important and just as much as my job. And then when I got married, I had to understand that I had a husband that was important as well. So I would tell you that I had to start putting stuff on my calendar as if I was putting a meeting on my calendar, and I would have to make those events. Now, did I make all of them? Did I do all of it? Great, no. But as time goes on, you realize you get up, you go to work, you come home, you do the same thing. And after a while, that gets more of a routine and you're good at it. But then you're missing kids' plays, you know, wedding anniversaries, birthdays, because, oh, that meeting can't wait or that event can't wait. But sometimes you just have to make time and not feel sorry for not being somewhere with your organization and being with your family. Because I always tell people, when you retire, you want your family standing on that stage with you. Your soldiers are going to be in the audience cheering for you, but who you going to have up there when you receive your flag and the flowers and the gifts? You want your family intact. So I would tell you that if you are a young soldier and you are married and you have kids now, let your platoon sergeant know, hey, this event is very important. I need to go home early today. Can I make up the work? I'm telling you in advance now that my kid has a play, or my kid is getting an award at school, or it's my anniversary. Can I go home early and maybe work late another day? But I think if you communicate in advance, I think it's all workable. Now, mind you, you're deployed, absolutely, you're gone. NTC, you're gone. Okay. But on days when you're just here and you're just doing your day-to-day duties, I would say make a point to make those important, appointments on your calendar, on your phone, and remind yourself that I need to leave because this is important too. Because like the saying says, the Army goes rolling along. And when I retire, someone's going to come in and do my same job. But I definitely want to have my family intact when I do retire. Thank you. That was a great question.
Great question and great response too, Sergeant Major. Thank you. General Beeler?
Yeah, so early on, I had other things I did, right? So I was a lieutenant, I was in Germany, I played the trombone in a local oompa band, we traveled around and did stuff. So that was my balance, right? Was, you worked hard, you played hard, you came back to work and you worked hard. And so it's like a good routine. And then the challenge, I think, comes in the middle space, right? Where you're a captain or you're a sergeant first class, you've bridged into that intermediate level of leadership where, you're working hard to achieve things organizationally, and there are big things, and the inbox is more full than the outbox often is. And so that was, I think, where it becomes hard to do the balance. And then other life happens, right? Marriage, kids, college, you're balancing going to school to work on a master's degree, personal or professional development. I think I took those things as part of my balance, right? So I had my soldier deal, but taking advantage of opportunities that came along, whether it was MWR trips, whether it was family, like the Strong Bonds activities that go on, vacation, you've got to take your leave, right? If you don't show that you are taking your leave, others aren't going to take their leave either, right? So the chief, at the time, General Milley said, I cannot have my senior leaders burning themselves out. So the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army checks all the GO leadership leave. I am required to take up to 10 consecutive days, and he holds my 4-star boss accountable for me taking at least, out of the 30 days I get, 10 consecutive days. I don't have to be out of town, but I got to be 10 consecutive days. And it's really important because we find that people get burned out. And sometimes we have to force them to take their leave. So that would be the thing I would say is you can't get burned out. So find those other activities, family events. The Chief of Staff of the Army today, General McConville, right? He talks about this continuum from routine to critical, right? What are those things that are routine that have, they happen routinely? You got to get them Army stuff, family stuff, right? So grocery shopping, mowing the grass, all the chores in the Army, right? PT, all that routine stuff, right? How do you then move across that continuum to those things that are important, right? So what are the important things on the Army side? Training exercises, ranges, APFT, all those things that you get graded at. Well, what are those things that are important on the family side, right? On the personal side, weddings, birthdays, recitals. You might not get them all because you may have to balance them with a field problem or balance them with the deployment activity or those sort of things. But understand what they are and kind of line them out for yourself, and then have that conversation with your supervisor. Or if you're the leader, have that conversation with your soldiers so that you can kind of align out what you think is going to happen over the course of the next year that's in that important plannable area. And then what are those things that are absolutely critical, right? So war, right? We know go to war, go to crisis, that sort of thing. We're probably not gonna be able to get out of that. But left of that, right? What are those critical things we can plan for, right? That we should make exceptions for? Births, deaths, right? Those things that once in a lifetime activity that parents, spouses, children need to be a part of a particular event. I got to tell you, I can't think of, I mean, unless you're sitting on a fob in the middle of nowhere, that we're not going to try our best to get you back for one of those critical family events, right? And as leaders, we need to make sure we're thinking about those things. To Sergeant Major Clark's comment about, when we retire, when we hang it up, somebody's going to be right behind me. Think about that as a perfect developmental opportunity for the Bubba or Bubette behind you to step into your gig and do your mission while you're gone. I'm telling you, if we're not training them, if we can't trust them to do that, we're not doing our job either. So that's kind of how, a lot of senior leaders have been talking about it recently. I kind of wrote that down when we had that conversation, and I've tried to plan it out, right? So, because those are the there's negotiable and then there's non-negotiable, and how do you put it all into context and have that conversation with the important people in your life? What's important to them, right? Is it your being at their college graduation when they finish their master's degree? Is it, what is the important thing all the way down to the 3-year-old, right? What's important to the 3-year-old, and figure out how can you work those things in and have those conversations with your supervisor. We're not in the Army anymore that said, hey, if I wanted you to have a spouse, I'd have issued you a spouse. I get to listen to a lot of people older than me these days say, well, when I was in the Army, and I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't have wanted to be in your Army. It worked for then. It doesn't work today, right? So that's why we give people paternity leave, right? These are important points in life. We know that we can accommodate those things in the big Army schedule and still solve big Army problems and still be ready to, crush the enemy when we need to. So that's, I guess, how I would describe it.
Well, both of you had some wonderful advice, and if everyone understands the importance of leave, it's never more important to understand that you can break too. And I appreciate you all saying that, because I go on leave in 2 days. And I say that because, one, I'm happy to go on leave with my family and enjoy my husband, and we're going on vacation. But also to be able to say, hey, I've trained you, I've led you, now go out and show us that you listened. And so it's truly an opportunity, as General Beeler said, it's an opportunity to say those behind, or those that are in those subordinate positions or junior positions, this is your opportunity to say, we heard what you said, you've taught us well, we can execute it, ma'am, go on leave. I went in earlier today to just receive a briefing and got kicked out of the office after it was done. And they literally helped me to my vehicle and said, get out of here, man. I was like, Roger that, you don't have to, order taken, I'm out. And so thank you, ladies, so much for that. And I think that's where everybody, sometimes we all feel guilty about taking leave. We can't feel guilty anymore about it. We have to say, I need to be a better leader for you if I'm resilient, if I'm rejuvenated, because if not, I could get to that point where if I'm not there and it might come across and come out at the other person. So thank you so much. And ladies, we are at 1927, and it has just been, well, I could probably, if I didn't look at the clock, we could probably go another 20, 30, 40 minutes, but we won't, because you all have a lot of great things to do this evening and the rest of the week. So ma'am, I'm gonna let you give some final thoughts and closing comments. And then Sergeant Major, I will let you do the same thing. And then we're just gonna close it out and thank everybody for coming. So ma'am, if you wouldn't mind, please give us some final thoughts.
All right, so my final thoughts really come down to 2 things, right? The first thing I'm going to talk about is how I view diverse, homogeneous, or inclusive teams, and what I think we're attempting to achieve by having conversations about all these things, right? So there's this diagram by Francis Fry, and it shows a diverse team, and it's a Venn diagram. It's got 3 intersecting circles, And diversity means we've got all this knowledge, each one of these people, right? So kind of like when you first come into the Army, everybody's coming in with their own bit of knowledge, and slowly those circles start to overlap, and we have a little bit of shared knowledge, but a whole lot of knowledge that isn't shared. It's just held within the stovepipe of the individual. Then we got homogeneous teams, right? Where everybody's an automaton, right? They eat the same. They're all the same. They don't have any differences in language or culture or background, right? So, I don't know of many teams that look like that anymore, but I suppose there are some out there. But then we have inclusive teams, and that is the ultimate goal, right? Is to take the diversity and make sure everybody takes advantage of that diversity by allowing people, all the people, to share, right? So this is where listening comes in. So as an extrovert, that's what I work on, is the listening piece, and not just listening, but hearing, right? So, talk about back brief, right? I always try to parrot back. So what I hear, what I understand you to have said is X, Y, and Z, so that I make sure that I have shared understanding. Well, that's the idea, right? Inclusive teams is shared understanding amongst all the people on the team. Why? So that when you're out in the field problem and the OPFOR comes through the barbed wire and they take out your talk, then the next group up, right? They know what's going on, right? They've had that 5-point contingency plan. If I don't come back, here's what you do next. Here's the actions on the objective, basic troop leading procedures. So that's the importance of inclusivity, right? Because we don't all have the innate knowledge or the innate experience to be able to see tough problems from multi-perspective. And so I think that's really the objective of making sure we can include all of our assets, all of our resources to solving hard Army problems. And the second thing I would say is, culture is the sum of all the individual behaviors in your organization divided by you. What you allow to happen in your organization, or what you do as the leader of your organization, is what the culture of your organization is going to be. And you might be the leader of a small part of a organization, but you set standards. Now, a good one, I'm going to make a simple one, right? When I was in the Army, all the smokers had to smoke outside the motor pool gate. But the dippers, man, they were walking around with their bottles until one sergeant first class spilled his dip bottle all over my conference room table. And that was it. I was like, smokers smoke outside the gate, dippers dip outside the gate. My company commander came in and I'm like, sir, you need to take that dip bottle out of my maintenance area. What? Sir, dippers dip, smokers smoke, got to treat everybody equal, right? So we got to take care of all of those things. Same set of standard. And eventually I never had those problems, right? They knew that was not going to be tolerated in the motor pool, and they moved on. Same thing with broken equipment, right? You're out there underneath that truck, checking their PMCS. They're going to know what's allowed and what's not allowed. And then they're going to embrace it because they want to do good. Nobody comes to work to be horrible. People want to come to work and do a good job and be successful. So how we help do that through the culture we create and the culture and the behaviors we allow, I think will deliver against any hard Army problem that's out there. So thanks a lot for allowing me to be a part of this forum.
Ma'am, thank you so much. And it is always great to see and hear everything you have to say. Don't worry, we'll have you back again and just have the opportunity to just hear some more words from you. All right, Sergeant Major, your final closing thoughts, please.
Okay, I just want to say thank everybody for joining this evening. This is very important. Sometimes you might not have a mentor in your formation, but when you can find different outlets like this mentoring morale program, I think it's some great nuggets, great speakers that ma'am, you have on, and they always come with, a great message. But I would tell you, just remember, never lose sight of what you're doing and find that purpose in life. And you don't even have to be in the Army. Just find something that you can grab hold on to that makes you get up every day. And you're going to make mistakes along the way. We all do. But I would tell you that I didn't get here by myself. I've had great teams around me that helped me get to where I'm at. That's why I'm really big on teamwork. But you got to be a follower before you can be a leader. And sometimes even when you're a leader, you're still a follower. So you don't really lose those roles. You just might one day be in charge, maybe not one day be in charge. And that's okay, because you still have something added value to bring to the team. So I would say always have your voice. If you have a nameplate at a table, please use it wisely. Okay, because in order for someone to come behind you, you have to do a great job to keep that door open. Right now, I can tell you when I left out the BSB being a female, 3 more female command sergeant majors came behind me. I'm not going to say it was because of me, but I would tell you that door got open and it stayed open. So we just have to do our job, do the role that we were given, and do it the best of our ability. Happy holidays, safe travels to you, ma'am. I wish I was going with you to the warm weather, but enjoy. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And both of you are just wonderful speakers. And I know we record all of these, so it will be on our Facebook page for those who missed it. If you have service members or soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, I like saying that. And so any of your subordinates who didn't get a chance to sit in this evening, because I know they're prepping for HBL, please let them know to link into the Facebook page, FMMP Facebook page, and they can see all of our past videos and just get some great knowledge and information and food for their soul to continue on in leading. And I'd like to close out with letting you all know, one, the reason we do this is for this very reason. How many people get a chance to talk to a sergeant major or a general officer and just hear their thoughts? Most of the time we have soldiers that think we were born generals, colonels, sergeant majors. They think we were born that. The young privates don't know that we were young at one time also. And although they think we're old as dirt, they just don't know we've been there. And so this is that opportunity to give back. And sometimes soldiers won't go to a leader and say, I want you to be my mentor. So we offer a platform for them to just sit in and listen, and then they'll be able to reach out over time if they want to get some feedback. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining in. We're going to send out our next month. Our January session is going to be at the end of January, and you're going to have another great round of leaders for the whole year. And so again, God bless you. Thank you so much. Thank you all for the messages. Merry Christmas, stay safe, and stay COVID free. All right, have a great evening. Get your booster shots. Okay, there. I'm just